Hello, hello, first-timer students. I wish to welcome you to the 10th knowledge session. In this session, Professor Vinod Kaul will be addressing you students on the topic Introduction to the Glamour and Fashion Industry. To give you some information about Professor Vinod Kaul, he is a graduate in BSc Honours from St. Stephen's College, University of Delhi. And thereafter, he did his postgraduate diploma in management from IIM Ahmedabad. He is a seasoned professional with over 40 years of experience in the fashion, retail, and publishing industries, where he has operated at very senior positions, which includes 8 years that he spent in Canada. In India, Mr. Vinod Kaul worked with senior capacities with Tata Exports, Bata India, TCM Benetton, Birla VXL, and Raymond. In Raymond, he was in fact the director retail. He headed the Fashion Design Council of India, also referred to as FDCI, as an executive director from 2002 to 2004. During his tenure, FDCI brought together Indian fashion designers and he organized them into an industry with international potential. An important vehicle for this, which many of you may have seen in the media, was the annual India Fashion Week. Mr. Kaul founded RVG News Vision Private Limited, which was involved in management consultancy and e-publishing for the fashion, luxury, and retail industries in India. Mr. Kaul teaches at FOSTIIMA in marketing related areas, including retail management, business ethics, CSR, corporate governance, etc. You would be happy to know, maybe surprised to know, that Mr. Kaul is an avid marathon runner and participates in national races in the half marathon, which is 21.1 kilometer distance, the full marathon, which is 42.2 kilometer distance, and even the ultra marathon, which is over 50 kilometer. He has written a literary fictional collection of short stories, Confessions of an MBA, and other stories. With this, I wish to hand over the podium to Professor Vinod Kaul. Over to you, Vinod.
Thank you, Rajiv. I am very happy to be here, and I welcome all my young friends who are born into technology. I think a lot of us should be adapting to the new world, and the young ones should really be thrilled that we have web communications and web interaction. So I would like to share some of my experiences, and I'll tell you in which context. Uh, uh, as you go through the 2 years at FOSTIIMA, and of course into the big bad world afterward, as I call it, the big bad world, because you take a lot of tumble sometimes. Uh, you will learn about, you will of course gain knowledge and skills. And a great area of knowledge are various industries. So you learn about the FMCG industry, the hot goods, textiles, petroleum, shipping, and so forth. So, in my sort of travails, I ended up within really what I like to call the glamour industry, because that's what it is. But as rightly put, this is technically the fashion design industry. Now, you would think, how does a person from IMA or MBA basically land up in high fashion and sort of start moving around with fashion designers, models, and all sorts of people? Um, so I'll just give you a little story of how I got there. So after when I went to Canada, I got into the apparel industry, apparel and apparel retail. So two of my strong credentials were really garments and apparel, and of course retail. And when I came back to India, I continued in the apparel industry. Most particularly, I was heading the DCM Benetton as executive director, and I continued on to Raymond. This was a key thing really at Raymond. Our managing director, who still is there by the way, because it's part of the family, is Mr. Gautam Singhania, and I was reporting to him as director retail. Now, retail is a huge area, and today Raymond runs exclusive Raymond stores. There are about 1,000 of them. In my time, we had about 400 stores. And as you will learn that garments or fashion is really after food is the number two category for retail. In any case, as the story goes, Mr. Gautam Singhania always had a weak point for fashion. He was very well dressed. He was used to be there at all the important events, social events in Bombay and around the world. So he actually came to me and he said, Vinod, you are head of retail. I want to set up a fashion, sort of a chain of glamour shops, fashion design outlets. I think you're understanding that fashion, high fashion, is really at the top end of the apparel and luxury industries. Okay, so he said, I want you to get into the fashion design space, and in fact, that's what we did. We built up a whole new department. We built up a new brand, retail brand called BE, and it was my job to contact big and famous fashion designers like Rohit Bal. We'll talk about a few of them, Rohit Bal and others. Put them together. They were very small and by big corporate standards, but they were not so well organized. So we decided to have a multi-brand chain called B, and I remember opening the first one in Ansal Plaza in Delhi, the first B shop, and of course, he opened in Bombay and so forth. And that's how I got in touch with the Fashion Design Council, which had just started a few years earlier, and of course, India Fashion Week also. And within a few years, since I was getting associated with them very well, they finally got me on as executive director. And I must say, I had a very colorful time at the Fashion Design Council. The FTCI is like NASCOM. Perhaps you would know NASCOM better. So NASCOM is like a sort of a pinnacle body, and they represent the industry requirements to the government. They deal with. I used to travel abroad, meet some of the other. Every country has a fashion design council. The U.S., Italy. So I traveled to a lot of these places, and we connected Indian fashion to the world, really. And of course, our big hoopla, so to say, in India was the India Fashion Week, and this requires tons of people. There are also tons of sort of emotions and passions involved in this. So it's not necessarily an easy thing, because we sort of deal with a lot of people. But that again, as you say, as I can say, is that is part of the industry. Every industry. One more thing I'd like to say about the industry is that the industry will never disappear, no matter how much technology comes and goes, because fashion is today is a way of communication. Fashion is, after food, shelter, and all that. Fashion is what you are as a human being. and what you want to show yourself to your friends and to the world. And that is why fashion is in that sense a safe industry. Okay. Um, okay. I will look at comments as as we go along, and I'll take comments at the end. But I've got a PowerPoint presentation. I put in a few photographs. Fashion is a visual industry, and without pictures, really we go nowhere. So let me start. Just give me a minute to load up, and we can get going there. Okay. I'm declining all annotation requests. Some people have made a request because one, we don't have a lot of time. I can keep talking about fashion for next several hours. You can see because there's a lot of sides to it, as in any industry. So today, my idea is to get your toes wet. One day you might land up in the fashion industry. Again, I'll go through a lot of detail, but don't worry about it. I don't expect you to retain everything and remember everything. This is like getting a sort of you know, getting a lot of overdose in the beginning so that some of it goes down and some of it will relate. You'll relate to. We did this in IIM Ahmedabad. There was so much data coming in that a lot of it just went through. But really, I remember even after 1 year, 2 years, even 5 years, saying, "Oh, we learned about this," and then you know where you are, and that is the intent over here to know what the fashion industry is, and if you get into it, all the better. Okay, please, please stop asking for uh, annotation requests because I am not accepting those. Okay. Uh, Okay. So we're talking about the what I call the Indian glamour industry, but really we're talking of the fashion design industry. And I like to start with a picture from one of the designers I know very well, JJ Valaya. And in fact, I was an advisor to JJ Valaya for 1 year. As you can rightly would have guessed by now, that there are really two sides to fashion. One is to the creative side, like JJ Valaya, and I'll tell a little bit more about JJ Valaya because he's a very interesting character. And the other side is what we call the business of fashion. Fashion can't survive with just the creative side. It definitely needs a business side to it. Okay. Um, this is my 1, 2, 3 formula. And I think I take off from what last speaker said, Amit, about don't worry which industry is big, which is small, which is this. What are you passionate about? Because you're going to do what is best, what you're passionate about. So my 1, 2, 3 simple formula for your career is: one, know yourself. What do you like? What don't you? What really sort of gets you going? Spend some time in doing that. Experiment, do things, and then of course get knowledge about the fashion industry, about the real estate industry, about food industry, and then you will find, and then of course get passionate really, and then everything falls in place. Okay, let's start. Um, I have spoken about fashion many times, and I ask people what is the word which comes to your mind. Normally, I do it in an open session, but here I'm just putting up some words that people associate with fashion. Uh, and this includes glamour, certainly. Also, another word. Okay, I'm just seeing if I can. I won't do that. Okay, so glamour, design. Sometimes I hear the word outrageous because you see in fashion walks, some garments are totally outrageous. Models, ramps, fashion weeks, fashion shows, of course, and fashion weeks. You hear of socialites, nice people, very well dressed, very rich, and of course, the media is all over the place. Yes, all this are really in that sort of formula for fashion. But as people say, beauty is skin deep, and in that sense, fashion is skin deep. And very often, I revel at you have a stage which is very well done and all that, and you just go behind the stage and you can see all the woodwork, the nails, the other things, and so forth. Fashion is also hard work. I'll tell you, none of the fashion designers have got up one day and become big designers. They have worked very hard, and what makes them work is really their passion. So if you take someone like Rohit Bal, he gets up at 11 in the morning or 12, but he works till about 2, 3 in the morning every day. That's his cycle. And he's been doing it day after day until one day, of course, he had a heart attack. He's still there. But really, it is hard work. So don't fool yourself. But if it belongs in your passion field, then it is. Okay, these are some dramatic pictures of fashion shows. On the left is, of course, what we call the runway. The second is very interesting. This is when the model reaches the end of the runway, turns around, and starts getting back. Now, this is the key place where all the photographers sort of hang around. As you can see, I find this picture I put because this is I find the moment of glamour. This is the real moment of glamour because you have 50 over 50 photographers at the end of the runway, all cramped together, all cameras, and they're clicking non-stop. They will be clicking non-stop as the model goes around, and they will be having flashes. Of course, now cameras have changed, but really, just till a few years back, you would have something like 50 flashes going off one after the other. They will almost light up the place. This is the world of glamour. This is the front end of course, fashion. As I said, there's the back end also. This is really the moment of glamour. This is what people sort of rule over, whether it's the model, whether it's the designer, whether it's the customer, whether it's the media. This is, and I think as you would have guessed, that fashion works in a different way than a lot of the other FMCG industry. For instance, we are looking at some of the, as I say, the nuts and bolts of fashion. This is very interesting um, because uh, this is very interesting because um, fashion does not work through advertising. And this, of course, you learn a lot in your college when you go there. Advertising is good for mass promotion. Fashion is not mass. It is very, very selective. It's very niche. It has to be handled very sensitively. So the really big sort of platforms are events and experiences, which is things like fashion shows and events, as we call it, and of course, public relations and publicity. You don't see much of this because it doesn't hit you in the face like advertising, but public relations is big, big in fashion and publicity. So you will read a lot about fashion, you will not see the advertisements. And then we have our, of course, our own peculiar ways, like trunk shows, where designers actually travel, carry their goods, they book places in five-star hotels around the world. So all these big designers also do that. They will travel to New York, where they have an audience. They will have a close-knit group. They will have a mailing list, perhaps of just a couple of thousand people, and that's all that they will call to their exhibition and sale. These are known as trunk shows. So again, a very interesting and particular aspect of fashion. And the other side of for fashion, as you have seen, is that the whole concept of page three, where you want to be seen, in this. In fact, I had a very interesting thing when I was the executive director of the FTCI. I had to visit all these parties, especially during Fashion Week. Sometimes there were 3 or 4 parties in one night, and of course, I would be picked up right away on page three. So you had to be careful of what you said and how you, what who you hung around with and what you did actually. So this is like meeting with the other side of fashion. So very exciting. So if that excites you, perhaps I don't know. Perhaps you could look at fashion as a career. I'll go very quickly through this. This is something you can do in your own time. So I don't want to detail. Fashion industry really, there's a difference between heritage and fashion. Heritage cannot be changed because that's what you. Fashion is always current. Fashion, as I have written down below, fashion is always current, but builds on a rich heritage. And some of the big names which have really put India on the fashion map is one is Ritu Kumar. I'm sure many of you actually have been to her shop. She is one of the very successful designers of India. Ensemble is one of the stores which was opened by another big fashion designer, Tarun Kalyani. It's a multi-brand store with many fashion designers, some of the top fashion designers, and all that. Um, the and because of liberalization, of course, a lot of foreign influences came in. The FTCI was formed in 2000. I joined it in 2002, just 2 years. So that way, I was very happy. I had a lot to work on to really build it up. And we'll talk about Manish Arora in one of the other slides. Okay, let's move on. Okay. By some corporate standard, the industry may not is perhaps just about 15 or 20,000 crores by now, but it is very influential. It influences trends. It influences the whole big apparel industry, multi-brand, mass brands, things like that. And of course, there is a big link between fashion and Bollywood, which is another big sort of media. So that way, the fashion design industry has more than outweighs its size in terms of influence. Okay? These on the right are some of the multi-brand designer wear stores. Some of them are pretty big, like Himaya. Azza is one of the ones which I helped start, actually. They are located here in Defense Colony, South Extension, Maroli, Bombay, a number of other places. Okay. Um, fashion industry is fashion industry is really part of the luxury industry. So there is a much bigger luxury industry, and luxury industry has really been growing. And of course, the US is the largest consumption of luxury industry. What do you think is the number two? We can't interact just now, but keep it in your mind. Um, the second largest country is, believe it or not, is not France, it's not Italy, not this thing. At one time it was Japan, perhaps, but it is China. China, because what is happening in China is even office secretaries will skip their lunch, store their, save their money and buy a Gucci bag. And if some of you have bought a Gucci bag, they really start from 30,000 rupees, go up to 1 lakh and more. So luxury is not just esoteric anymore. And I'll say a few more words about it also. So let's move on. Um, okay. Okay. This I'll spend a little bit of time on. Let me see if I can get a pen here. Then I can annotate it. Okay, I got that. Okay. Now I've got a designer over here, Anita Dongre. Some of you may have heard about it. She's of course a good friend of mine, member of the FTCI. I helped her a lot. Um, Let me put it this way: she was a very average designer. Average designer, the much greater, more talented designers. But today, she is the most successful of the fashion designers. And before I give the numbers away, I'll tell you how fashion design moves. Fashion design moves from the top, which is couture. In India, a lot of it is wedding wear, uh, and this means one of a kind. There are no two kinds of couture. So really, you have to go to a designer, to his studio. He may give you some ideas, but in the end, he sketches, makes something for you, and no one else in the world wears that. But of course, you might get a langa which costs 10 lakhs. Okay, so if you can afford it and you love it, you might do that. But designers, this really started from Europe and the US, and Indian designers are following that. So they were very successful in couture, but they wanted to sell more. They had more people also wanted it. They could, so they came one or two notches and went down to diffusion. This is the next level. Diffusion is where you make few of a kind. You may just make 10 or 15 pieces. You don't make 1,000. You make 10 or 15 pieces and sell it through boutiques, and you will adjust the goods according to your customers also. So this is diffusion. And what has happened in the last 15 years, 20 years is designers go down to pret. This is a French word, means ready to wear. So pret-a-porter. So even Armani makes couture, diffusion, and pret-a-porter. And pret-a-porter is sold through department stores. No, it's not as cheap as your regular shirt, but perhaps you can buy a Rohit Bal shirt for about 5,000 rupees, which is a Pret shirt. But of course, if you go to couture, it will cost you perhaps 20,000, 30,000 perhaps. Okay, so Pret really gave them numbers, really gave designers numbers. And in fact, today, people like Armani and other designers, they make more money from Pret than couture. And but like in many things in marketing, you get your identity through couture and perhaps diffusion. But really, this is where the money is. Okay. Now, Anita Dongre followed that. She is a designer, very nice person at heart. So she started with her label called Anita Dongre. This is the house of Anita Dongre, which is a very typical Indian wedding wear collections and all that, expensive and all that. And she was getting nowhere. She was another small time designer. Then, of course, she opened a second label. This is a common practice among designers and being smart. And she went into and was Westwear because more and more people were getting. So she had a second label, which was called and the Anita Dongre shops were different than and shops. Okay, so you can understand, and their location, of course, was different, and was more. But still, she was just another designer. So what happened? What made her really great? It was really coming down to Pret. What happened? And you won't believe this. She had a brother in the US who did his MBA. So he came back to India and he said, "Sis, what are you doing?" She said, "I'm doing this, but I'm slaving away and all that." He said, "Let me help you." So, and this is very common. Even Ritu Kumar has her husband who does the business side of it and all. So he, an MBA, started working with, and working means he was one of the directors and he became the CEO and director. And Anita Dongre, who was the original founder, which is what that's why I'm explaining because it typically happens. She became the director, what they call creative director, but she was not running the company. She does not own 100% of the shares today. Probably she owns probably 15-20% of the shares of Anita Dongre. So he went like a typical MBA. He said, where are the volumes and which is the segment which is really going to sort of jump up? And he said, these are young people like yourself who think internet. They're Indian, they're Desi, but they really have a global mentality. And they actually coined a word based on their market research called global Desi. And he was able to get institutional financing, which means some of the big international financiers were able to put in huge sums of money. They opened a series of shops in malls. Okay, and Anita Dongre and Global Desi ran away with the money, so to say. How much is the turnover today? The last year they crossed 200 crores. 200 crore. So this is a success story based on the basic principles of fashion and this whole sort of trickle down, so to say, into Pret, and how she would have always remained a small designer. There's nothing great about her in terms of talent. Please don't tell her that. But it's really her brother who really infused the management side to the whole thing. Okay, let's move on. Okay. Okay, let's move on. I will introduce a few of the big name designers. Some of you are already familiar with it, but it's good to know if you want to learn about the industry, you should be able to, when you meet someone, throw a few names around. The first one is Ritu Kumar. She's among the founders, you can say more or less, of modern Indian fashion design. She, of course, excelled in block print and zardozi. She's also started a Pret label, and it's called Label. It's very funny, but that's her son runs this. It's called Label, and here you see Ritu Kumar with a model walking the runway. As you know, if some of you have seen FTV, or if you've actually been to fashion shows, at the end of the presentation, the designer walks onto the runway with the model and takes a bow. And of course, I ask this question, who is the designer here, on the left or on the right? Yes, I'll give you just one guess. Okay, I think you're smart enough to guess that one. Yeah. Okay. Uh, this is my big friend, and he's really physically big. In fact, he's bigger than what you see over here. He's JJ Valaya. But I'll tell you more about his story than about his clothes. Well, his clothes are all bridal. He's big in every way, very royal, very regal. If you see one of his fashion shows, it's not just people walking in. It is like sounds, it's color, it is visual. As you can see the stage, even in this picture, there are a lot of props. So it is like something which sorts your eyes, ears, and everything else. So JJ Valaya is actually Jag Sharanjit Singh Ahluwalia. Okay, but he was smart enough that Jag Sharanjit Ahluwalia probably cannot be a big designer, but JJ Valaya can be, and yes, he has become big. But the interesting story is he was learning to be a chartered accountant. He had done his, I think, some commerce or management. He went to take his, so he was practicing that CA, whatever you do before you become a CA, you have to, for 4 or 5 years, you have to work. He was in Jaipur, and that's what he tells me, and that's what he tells in interviews. So one fine day, he said, I'm fed up. I'm fed up with numbers. I'm fed up with this because he had that streak, he had that thing. So he came home. He just closed his everything. He closed his little one room set up there in Jaipur. He came back to Delhi and he told his family, I'm not going back. And that's when he got into fashion. And there, of course, he excelled and you see him today. So, Jak Charanjit Singh Aluwalia, the new avatar, is really JJ Valaya. And who knows, perhaps one of you. I do, by the way, because I am associated with some fashion institutes, and I do get engineers, especially girls, who say, no, we did engineering, but we really want to become fashion designers. Okay, Rohit Bal is the big bad boy of fashion. Um, I have a soft spot for him because although he's Punjabi by ethnicity, but he grew up in Kashmir, which is where I come from. And he's known as the big boy, the bad boy of Indian fashion because he's very cantankerous, he's very volatile, but he's very interesting. Okay, and that is the thing about fashion. The personality of the designer goes onto the collections. And I remember when I was in charge, I was in Bombay. He had a fashion show, and after that, it was a great thing. It went off very well. So what he did, what he typically, he got all his stuff to help him. They went to a bar at night after the fashion show. They got drunk and they ripped off all their clothes. And luckily, they kept their underwears on and they started dancing on the bar. The police were called. And as you know, if you're a PR person or rather than hurting him, that made him bigger because it was front page news. His picture was there and he became more famous. And people say, wow. And it really strengthened his brand even more. Okay, so that's how. Of course, he's very talented. That you can probably guess. More talented than Anita Dogre. Okay, Sachi Mukerji. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about it, especially a lot of the girls. Um, he is from West Bengal. Um, I am very happy to say during my watch, when I was the executive director, he was knocking on our doors to be at Fashion Week. And normally we don't get a new young upstart to really participate in Fashion Week. But he was especially talented, and we gave him leave or permission. We gave him a slot to actually show his collection, and he was fantastic. And there are about 400 people come from the press from the media during Fashion Week, including photographers, journalists, even editors. That he never looked back. He got fantastic coverage. As I said, it's really the media which really builds up all these designers finally. And of course, he got involved in Bollywood. And because of him, I was able to meet at close hand a lot of Bollywood people like Rani Mukherjee and so forth, because he used to get them as showstoppers. You know what showstopper is? It's someone you have your show, and at the end of it, you get someone and of course, you keep it a secret. And in the last pass in the show, you get someone who's so famous that everyone shuts up and keeps quiet, and they look in amazement. And of course, he used to pull out people like as you can see, Vidya Balan, Rani Mukherjee, and I had to take care of them behind the stage before they sort of came out. So that was very interesting. Okay, we got Salman Khan once. Of course, we had to pay for his private flight from Bombay to Delhi, and of course he came with a team of people, so forth. But there are a lot of stories. I cannot go into all of them right now. Okay. Uh, okay. Here we have. Okay, every designer is not your normal designer, so to say. So you have Manish Arora. He's a very interesting designer, and you can see his clothes. I'd like to ask you, would you wear one of these? Okay, would you wear one of these? Uh, okay, either the left one or the right one. So he was the one who had imprints of Indian guards. He had other things. This is known in fashion sense. It's known as quirky or quiche or bizarre. And of course in India he wasn't able to sell much. He was, and I said, Manish, why don't you follow like the rest? And he said, Vinod, I can't make that. This is what drives me. This is the only thing I can do. So that's a true sort of feeling of an artist, to sort of speak your feelings out. But there was a silver lining. So we had tie-ups with different fashion weeks, and we had a tie-up with Paris Fashion Week. And when we had an exchange program, we sent him to Paris, and he was able to show just like that. He was able to carry all his collection, as you can see, aspects of it. And guess what? He was a hit in Paris. What he could do in India, he was an instant hit. People drooled all over. He got a lot of orders from boutiques, other things. He's still very strong in France. He sells in Paris. You can buy him in Paris, but he will not. Well, in India, what has happened in India is he wanted to sell in India also, but he, of course, made a different collection, which was more your typical ethnic thing. And he had a tie-up with Viva, which is the other thing I'll talk about. So he had a tie-up with Viva, and he has a collection called Indian, which is more conventional lines in India. But again, someone who's passionate and stayed by it and benefited because of that. Okay, let's move on. Okay, who doesn't know Manish Malhotra? And he is what is known as a Bollywood designer. Now, some of the designers do not think Bollywood designers are the best things that have happened, because they deal with they like Manish really started by making lines and clothes for movies, and then of course a number of them got into regular fashion, and of course he's able to pull in almost any Bollywood designer for his shows, because he's worked with them, worked for them, really developed them, and so forth. And of course, he's big name now. There are people who have been regular designers, and they go into Bollywood also, like Sabyasachi. So he's taken in a number of movies. Okay, because again, fashion presentation is very important in Bollywood. So there are really certain commonalities or between the two sort of industries. There's a definite meeting ground. So we have Manish Malhotra. Okay, now, for the remaining time that we have, which is about perhaps 15 or 20 minutes, we will talk about something, uh, you can call it boring, but it is really our field, your and my field, which is the really business side of fashion. Um, a lot of young designers start uh, and they set up their own studio. They sort of, but they quickly find that they have to become one-man armies, because you cannot succeed. You cannot succeed without. Uh, okay, you cannot succeed without also being involved on the business side of fashion, and this includes manufacturing. This includes manufacturing, designing. Of course, they're very well keen on, and they know it very well. But you have to manufacture them. You have to, you have to have commerce. You have to keep stocks. You have to market. You have
अच्छा
to do
आइडिया उठा
PR.
के करना है
So what do you do all that? So they need the help of the business side. When there's, so I have been, in fact, I have been
कैसे
various
चलता है भैया
times the advisor to different designers. This includes, as I told you, JJ Valaya for a year, Rohit Bal, I've been his advisor for a year, and Anjana Bhargav, three different designers. With JJ Valaya, I was able to bring in equity from outside investors into his business, and of course, these are very vital things. So, so there are really, as I said, two sides of business: the creative side, which requires that passion, which requires all that. It's okay to be cantankerous. It's okay for Rohit Bal. In fact, he should continue being cantankerous. But the other side, you need people like us who have their nose to the ground, who see things for what they are, they market. And this very often happens in terms of joint ventures. There are joint ventures between designers, there are joint ventures between designers and corporates. And that was one of my strategies really in FTCI when I was there. But I'll give two examples of so one of the joint ventures was with Biba and Manish Arora. Biba has a they're a large chain of stores. They want good, talented people, and they want well-known faces. So Biba, so they did tie up Manish Arora very recently, and this is very interesting, and it's a landmark for us also. Raghuvinder Rathod is a very well-known designer based out of Jaipur, and he does the he's into big into menswear, and he does this men's formal wear. He's famous for his Bandgala coats, and he's been there, but he's continued to, by corporate standards, small. So what has happened now? Um, Xenia, Embroidery Xenia is a big brand out of Italy. So they have come to India for many years back, several years back, and their suits start from they make suits, and as you can see in this picture, they sell suits and others, and they have um, um, their suits start in price from 1 lakh. 1 lakh is their cheapest suit, and they go 2, 3, 4, 5. These are the type of people which perhaps Mukesh Ambani would buy from, or someone else, and they will send their people to your house even to sort of measure you up and to sort of do that. So Xenia, so what? In fact, Xenia and Reliance have a tie-up. Xenia and Reliance of Mukesh Ambani, since Mukesh is into Reliance Retail and they have a number of stores, so they are sort of representing Xenia in. So they recently, means just last year, they have bought a minority shareholdings in Raghvinder Rathod. They're not disclosing how much, but they have. Anyone can guess. They've probably invested probably at least 40, 50 crores in Raghvinder Rathod. And as Xenia said, this is a strategic partnership. Modern day business management being put to good use for creative designers. Mr. Rathod, of course, is a gentleman and a very good friend of mine. There are many things which really make fashion successful. I'm not going to go into that. As I said, I can spend a lot of time there. And I have organized, you can see actually Raghvinder Rathod and Rohit Bal in one of the various seminars I have arranged from time to time. Okay. So as I said, the other side of fashion is really hardcore business, and there is a lot of value building which has to happen from as they say, uh, when a fashion designer starts, he starts and has a label like Anita Dongre's label was Anita Dongre. But when they are really arrived, when they're really strong, that label becomes a brand, and that brand becomes all powerful and it outlives the designer. So we have an interesting situation where Versace was, of course, an internationally famous designer from Italy. And of course, he had big business. And you know what happened to him? He was shot and killed in Florida. Did his business close down? No. It's become even bigger. It has grown. First, his sister took over, Donatella Versace, but she's just the creative director. Really, the investments are from institutions. So the biggest shareholders are corporates. They're not the designers anymore. And this is what is slowly sort of going to happen to India and in India, and this is how they will become bigger and bigger. Okay. So this is the sort of model that works. Uh, what are the careers in fashion? Okay. Uh, I will just out of interest, and perhaps down the line, if you get an opportunity, you find some interest. One is, of course, fashion designing, definitely. You have to think of a designer as a spider. Basically, he's at the center. He technically he's fashion design industry. He's there, but there's a whole world around him. There's a whole web. There are a lot of people involved, and a lot of them are even bigger than the designer actually. So the biggest companies in Europe, let's say PPP and others, they are billion-dollar companies. They're bigger than the designers that they represent or things like that. Uh, but so fashion design is one side. This is probably not your line. This requires a lot of creative sense, and you might find that. But there are a lot of other related industries. Of course, accessory designing is also there. Accessory designing, hair and makeup. We will talk about this a little bit. Modeling. I think there was a case in IMA where one of the girls actually went into modeling because, well, he made the cut, and then of course he got into business management. Okay, styling. I will not go into detail because so you can be a stylist also if you have that touch and all that. There are people who are very well paid. Choreography. These are some of the things which are closer to you perhaps. Event management. Okay, there's some very big companies. Fashion is, as I told you, all about events and experiences. So event management is a big area, and close to this is public relations. Okay. Public relations, publicity, event management. Even if it's not always a fashion designer who holds a fashion show. I remember there was a meeting of NASCOM, and what did they do for the people who visited them? They organized a fashion show, although they're not into it. But it sort of fits in with as an event. Okay, so event management, public relations. The really big thing is retail, and I'll take a few more minutes to speak about that. And part of retailing is merchandising. How did I get into fashion? Okay, when I went to Canada, I was into retail, and you know I wasn't into apparel. I didn't know fashion. They said, no, these are the numbers. This is a computer. So a merchandiser decides the quantity. I was the financial merchandise manager. I used to actually handle the budgets, the dollars to buyers. The buyers for women's wear, men's wear. I would decide how much they had to buy based on forecast and all that. So this is all very interesting work. And some of the companies uh, in retailing, the biggest companies like Shopper Stop, the heroes and Shopper Stop are actually the merchandisers because the success or failure of Shopper Stop or Lifestyle or any retail chain decides on the merchandiser in terms of what is your merchandise array, what are your they get involved into sourcing, they get involved into display, they get involved into the quantities, they get involved in all these sort of things. So merchandiser is really the heart of retailing today, and that's how I sort of stumbled into, and that's how really the route which I took to get into fashion. And of course, a lot of you can do that. Um, Shopper Stop is one of the best merchandisers really in India today. Very professional, very solid. Of course, some of the other areas of photography, journalism, uh, buying, and of course, export houses, buying houses. And all of this you can be a CEO or you can be a manager. You can work some setups like Rohit Bal are very big. They had hired a lot of managers. In fact, I went on to some of the designers because I'm like an advisor to many people. They said, "No, we don't want young new designers. We want people who can do uh, 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 who are savvy with the net and they can really do digital marketing because that's what is happening even for fashion. Can you send me someone who's very good in digital marketing? Forget if he can design or not. So these are sort of some of the things that we go. Let me quickly go so I don't. Okay. Uh, let's go through some of the things. Okay. This is, I'm talking a little bit more about retailing and fashion. As I said, um, after food, the second largest category of merchandise to be retail across the world, not just in India, but really in the US, everywhere, is fashion. And actually, for modern Indian retailing, we started in the 1990s. Fashion was the driver, not food. Food is now catching up, but really fashion was the driver because the Indian fashion industry, apparel industry is already very well developed because of export infrastructure and so forth. So really, retailing and fashion go very well together. Where you're managing, I have been in Batas, where retail management shop. So there are various types of jobs. They can be store management. Okay, that's a whole different field. There is merchandising, and even merchandising has specializations in planning, buying, inventory control, logistics, warehousing, and of course, visual merchandising, which really gives you the great looks that all this does. Let's move on. Okay. Um, now, this is the thing. I will not get into detail. We don't have time. Fashion journalism is very big. I like to write. I've written a book also, and I continue to write. And if I had a second life to live, perhaps I'd become a fashion journalist because I'd really indulge my passion and, of course, really deal in that. But fashion is a big thing in media. Okay, and you can guess for a very good reason because everyone sees fashion. It's something which is very arresting. That's why in this picture here, you see Mr. Vineet Jain. He is the head of Times of India. He's the promoter of Times of India. Um, and of course, on the left at that time is Mr. Mirchandani, again, someone I know very well, who was the managing director of Shoppers Stop at that time. So all these people are really revolved. In the picture below, you can see Queen Elizabeth and Anna Wintour. Again, very interesting. Anna Wintour is the editor of Vogue in the UK, but she's very, very powerful and very cantankerous. And a movie has been made on her lines, and some of you might have seen this. It's called The Devil Wears Prada. Any of you have seen that movie? It's based on the life of Anna Wintour. She was a very tough lady, and she can make and break designers because Vogue is a very powerful arbitrator of fashion, and she was there. Our own case is a very successful thing. Is Miss Malani? She's a blogger. Imagine she started with writing a blog. She today her business is worth crores. Designers die to get her to review their collections, and she charges money to visit Fashion Week. So missmalani.com, you can visit that. Perhaps some of you already are. She's got lakhs of followers now. So very powerful. Fashion is a big inspirer and a big interest in terms of people and so forth. Okay, fashion photography. If you got sort of an interest, again, a very creative field. Uh, all of these, any successful fashion photographer has a company in the end. He's got a company, he's built it up, and you require managers. So this is where a lot of you will come in. Choreography, these two people I know very well, Rashmi Virmani, Aparna Bhel, and of course they have companies of their own. Rashmi Virmani does a lot of television programs also because again choreography for a lot of the entertainment programs are there's a commonality. She's got staff, she's got executives, other things, um, modeling, um, and there are modeling agencies. IMG, which is the biggest in the world, is like $1 billion company, and IMG is the biggest modeling agency. They're based out of New York. They used to be one of the sort of for India Fashion Week. They used to be one of our sort of partners in getting sponsors and other things, and also in terms of getting some of the top models. But interesting thing about modeling, it's not only um, the city uh, dwellers who get into modeling. You have, for instance, in the case of Jassi Randhawa, that this girl here, she comes from almost like a small town, almost a village near Jaipur, and she came to the big bad city, which is Delhi, and she's become one of the biggest models, at least in my time. Now, of course, much older. Milan Soman is also walked the ramp for us, and of course, he's a big time runner also. That's I still keep in touch with him. And there are famous Indian models like Ujjwala Raut, who lives in New York. She's famous actually in Italy. I saw her in fashion shows in Italy. So that's where she is. She does not come to India. And, you can see where people have really gone. Um, Hairstyling and makeup. I've just put two names there, which you must have heard about. And both Pillai and Javed Habib are big. We've got chains of salons across India, so they're big time into this. And I remember going to Javed in my fashion week. He said, please give me some advice about my hair. Perhaps I had a little bit more than what I had. And he said, just cut off all your hair. Just keep a bald head, cut off your beard, and that is the what is in trend. I didn't quite follow that. I got pushed to another year. But anyway, this is hairstyling and makeup. One of the Fashion Design Council. I won't go back into this. This is like the NASCOM of fashion. I was heading that for a number of years. Then I continued to be director on the board for some time. And this is the body. Of course, they hire people also. Uh, we're not going to get into the role of design councils, but today there are, if you look, there's a continuous, perhaps at the top you have fashion designers and luxury fashion, high fashion, couture, but really below that you have premium brands, and above premium brands you have a segment called bridge to luxury. So brands like Lacoste, feel that that's where they belong. So there are a lot of brands like Ra- Ralph Lauren, Canali, Zara. Zara is not a fashion design brand, but it is perhaps closer to a premium brand. So there is a whole spectrum of brands, and they're very close to each other, and especially since designers are going down into breadth. Okay. So just for completeness, I wanted to put this in perspective. And of course, if you to ask yourself, not today, not tomorrow, perhaps down the line, is this an industry you want to be in? Uh, this requires, you don't have to be a fashion designer to be in this industry. I certainly am not. But yes, you have to have some creative inclinations, like self-expression, but there are professional opportunities as well. And this is fantastic for entrepreneurship opportunities because fashion is either very big, like TPR and all that, which are billion-dollar companies, or perhaps Reliance, they're getting into it. But otherwise, it lends itself very well to entrepreneurship. So we have had people who make their. They don't. You don't have to be the biggest designer in the world. We have people who have very sensitive to fashion, but they're opening retail shops. They're opening boutiques or a chain of shops or a chain of boutiques, and some of them are, or they're making collections of what we call bridge to luxury. They're making premium brands, they're putting together premium brands of collection. They're hiring designers, putting collections together, and their focus is more on marketing it to some of the other channels and all that. So these are some of the interesting opportunities. So with that, my 1 hour is up, and I leave you with this. Okay, I will.
आप गेम खेलो नेट बंद करके तब सब शांति रहेगी
Okay, I will now take on some questions. I have reviewed the sharing. As I said, don't feel you've missed everything. There's a lot of detailing. If you got 20% of it, that's fine because you have to think mentally, perspective. How does it relate with other industries? Where is it? And if you walk into it again, you will be able to pick up the
मैंने
thread
ज्वाइन कर
and so
रखा है
forth.
बट मेरे नेटवर्क इशू आ रहा है कुछ
Okay. Okay.
हाँ
Okay. There are a number of questions here. Should I start with the bottom or should I start from the top? There are quite a bit of the questions. Okay, let me start. Um, okay, there is
मेरे
something
को
which
भी
is
नेट का कनेक्शन आ रहा है मेरा कनेक्शन
okay. Everyone can hear me? Okay,
Audible.
thumbs up. Yes? Okay. The first question I have is how are you maintaining the balance between your professional and fitness life? You can do it. People think I don't have time for your fitness life. I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I jog. I'm part of a runners group. Every Sunday we run 20 kilometers, and this is a training run. And during the week, again in the morning, I jog at least once or twice more per week, and I cycle also. And so you can also do it. You have to organize your life. If you say I don't have the time, you will never have the time. If you have the interest, you will always find the time to do it, and there is enough time during the day to do that. In fact, I was toying with the idea if some of you are interested in running, I can start a running workshop at FOSTIIMA. We have a part behind where I can sort of give you tips and other things on how to, running is finally a lifestyle. So my friends who are also part of our group, if they don't run for more than 3, 4, 5 days, it is like a withdrawal system. It's, oh, so I'm not feeling good. I haven't run in 5 days. You know, so this is what happens to you. Uh, okay. Uh, okay. I've got another question. I am also a science graduate and wanna join fashion industry. Can I do something in this lockdown time for the basic? I can't read the thing. Okay, you're a science. I'm also a science graduate. If you are interested in fashion and other things, yes, you can. Of course, you have enough time now to devise your strategy. How do you get into fashion? As I said, there are many entries. You can get into fashion through as a as a merchandiser, which is a very professional sort of approach, getting into fashion, into apparel. And the other side, you can get into other areas also, into retail management and sort of in many other areas also. What can you do into fashion? Build up your fashion sensitivity. You must be already probably get uh, excited about fashion or interested. Develop some of your fashion from the UK. She had done her MBA. I was in the FTCI. She came to me because she had to do her summer internship. She did a summer internship with us. She did a project on setting up a fashion house, and where she would plan to hire fashion designers. So she came back to India. She was a daughter of a rich father business. So she set up a fashion house, Vanija Bajaj, and she hired people, designers out of NIFT and all that, made a collection. They do too well. One fine day, she got up and she kicked out all those designers, and she said, they're nuts. They're making something which will sell in Paris and something. But she was very well connected and socialite and so forth. So she said, no, this is the sort of collection I want. And she got designers who did, and she became the sort of creative director, as we say. So she now today is an acknowledged, very successful fashion designer. Vanija Bajaj, who's done her MBA. So you can make leaps also like that. Okay. What, according to you, is a favorite part of being a? I talked about this. Could you please uh, tell the word turnover in a very simple definition? Turnover is your total sales. When you say turnover, you mean turnover of your sales. This is, of course, on the professional business side. You will learn about this quite a bit in finance, in at FOSTIIMA. When you turnover is a short form of turnover of sales. It means how many rupees have you sold during the year. Normally, you talk in terms of a year. So I said that Anita Dongre's company, uh, they, the global Desi has last year their turnover, annual turnover, the year's turnover has crossed 200 crores, the sales of our which is massive, in just a span of 6, 7 years. And a lot of it is due to a brother. Well, I would say 90% is due to a brother who came from the States after doing his MBA. Okay. How do you state how do you stay up to date regarding fashion? Well, you read a lot these days. It's not difficult to stay up to date regarding anything, whether it is running, whether so I am a member of a number of groups. I'm in fashion. I am an advisor. I teach fashion marketing, which is a specialized part of marketing. In some places, I still keep in touch with all the designers that I have been to, and I arrange these days. I've been arranging webinars in fashion. Uh, Very recently, we had one with Ashish Soni. So those who want to keep in touch, it's not difficult today. 10 years back, if you came with me, I'd say, oh, okay, do this, do that. But today, you start with the web, you'll get a lot of leads. In fact, you have too much information, so you need to be guided what is good for you and what is not. But it is very easy to keep in touch these days. Okay. Um, I will take a few more questions. How can we, what MBA specialization should we choose if you want to get into the fashion industry? I think you should choose marketing, and because in marketing and various sort of spaces in marketing, which includes retail management, merchandising, and other things, because you will really assist designers. Because what there are many different paths. One is that after this, you get into, let's say, digital marketing, and you join up with a designer like Rohit Bal and sort of get into digital marketing, and there you get your heads up about fashion, and perhaps like Varija Bajaj, you will set up your own initiative. Of course, none of these things are require a lot of uh, push from your side and a lot of conviction that what you want to do. Okay. But these days, when companies are big, like as I said, there are billion-dollar companies abroad, and these companies are some of them are even in finance. One of my friends, he's also from Ahmedabad. He's based out of Singapore, and he's handling a fund by one of the biggest fashion brand companies out of Paris, and he has invested in setups in India like Fab. They have invested, I think, about 200 crores in Fab India. He's an MBA, so he's purely a finance person. So, in a sense, uh, there are many ways of getting into fashion because fashion requires the professional side. Okay. We can, of course, talk about this. Um, Okay, I hope I can answer or at least get your saliva juices moving in terms of what you want to do. From fashion and glamour industry, how you came in teaching and education sector. Okay, I'm still not out. Okay, I'm still not out of the fashion and glamour industry in that sense. Well, I am much older now. I have I was running publications. I had a startup. So I am still an advisor to some of the designers. They still keep in touch with me. So in a sense, I've not really gone. Really as you come of age, initially you take a job. As you grow as you grow higher, some of the biggest setups like FTCI, you join on a contract, and then after that also, and you can have consultancy arrangements. So this very often happens at the higher end. I enjoy teaching, by the way. You cannot teach. You cannot teach unless you enjoy it. Let me put it this way, because you are there with young people. I find a lot of new things to learn, a lot of exciting things to do, and I like to help a lot of people. And I have been always on the business side of it, and now, of course, I'm on the business side of it, and of course, I've had a long experience in the fashion world. So that's the way I look at it. I hope that and um, being a fashion designer, what outfit do you suggest for an interview? Okay, outfit. I mean, I suppose you mean clothes. This is an interesting question, and we can talk about it. We normally, if you're dressed up in very fashionable clothes, I don't think you'll get a job. And I'll tell you why. Because a lot of fashionable fashion designers or their companies, when they're looking at you, they will look at the business side of fashion. So they want a more business looking sort of person and not someone with long hair like a designer and sort of wearing kurta pajama or something. I don't think they will feel very confident about your business sense. So clothes are a communication. But of course, I do understand. Like my son, when he went to Zomato, and I told him to wear a proper suit, he said, "No, pop, times have changed." So he actually went in blue jeans, but a jacket and a shirt without a tie, and he got the job. So it depends on the company. But no, I won't tell you to go into high fashion when you because a designer will find they're artists. You wear something fashionable, he's going to find something wrong with what you're wearing. Say, this is this was the trend last season. What are you doing? You don't have that fashion sense, and you will feel very bad. So don't take a chance. Stay within your strength. That would be my advice. Um, okay. I got a number of questions, but I'm going to end it here. Okay. Uh, okay. I'll just read one question, although I think it is partly responsible. I am highly inspired by today's session, and I really want to know what's the scope of fashion industry after MBA. The fashion industry is growing. Of course, right now you have everyone is hit by COVID, but this time will also pass. As I said, the fashion industry will always be there. They will not be affected by technology. They will not because fashion is very basic human sense. It's like food or entertainment or something else. These will always be there because we are. This is what makes us human. So fashion appeals to not to technology, but it appeals to what you are in human. So technology will always be used perhaps in selling fashion in many different ways. So there is definitely the fashion industry is that way. It's an industry which has come from the past, but it's also a sunrise industry in the sense that it will never shut down. It is not never going to go away. You're always going to wear clothes. You'll always be the luxury part of us will always be there because it is in our minds, it is in our heads. Okay. So definitely there's a scope, and if you feel inspired, go for it. That is my advice. With that, I will say thank you, and I'd like to say namaste, the good old-fashioned Indian way of namaste, and I hand you back to our organizers. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. The entire lecture was so inspiring. And one thing I noted that during the entire lecture, you were smiling. In the beginning, when you were talking about the models and the catwalk, you are more smiling than when you were talking about the business. I know that catwalk is in the front, it is all glamour, but backstage, it is hard work. Whatever field you choose, it is for students, they should enjoy it. Whatever job they have, they should do the job as if they are playing a game. So is the fashion industry. When you talked about fashion designers like Satya, Rohit, Manish, even Gucci, Armani, all these names were refreshing to us. And you have really inspired a feeling that why not to go in for fashion industry? These students are now feeling that we as an MBA students, after graduating can go into the fashion industry. It was really very nice having a lecture from you, sir. Some of the things you mentioned, they were new to us also. You mentioned that personality goes into the fashion. Personality of the designer goes into the fashion. It is really because when we see a design, we see the designer in it. You have really talked about the fashion in such a way that it is all inspiring to us. Then you talked about a lot of things, but you missed one thing. You didn't talk about your college days at IIM Ahmedabad, when you had Malika Sarabhai also studying with you. So she is Kuchipudi dancer now, but she also studied with you. When students, you are in the college, you should talk to these professors. They should be talking to you other case studies. They should talk to you case study regarding Malika Sarabhai also. Then you covered business. That was really beautiful. You covered everything what is there in the fashion industry, all that business, what we have in other industry, everything is possible in the fashion industry also. Starting from sourcing, outsourcing, manufacturing, waste reduction, alliances, mergers, acquisitions, everything is there. Supply chain is there, logistics is there, retailing is there. You covered everything. And it is something for the students. I want to tell you, dear friends, I'm looking forward to see you in the college soon. We organize number of functions. We celebrate number of festivals. The first organized function is your freshers party. And in that, an item is there, catwalk. All the boys and girls take part in that. And even I also take a part. And sometimes you call me as a showstopper also. We'll see you in the college, and then we'll celebrate freshers party also. Thank you so much, sir. It was a really meaningful lecture from you, sir. All other lectures, some of the lectures went above our head, but this was, every bit of it was understandable. Thank you so much. Now, students, please wait for 1 or 2 minutes. We want to have a feedback from you regarding this lecture. Please participate, all of you, in the feedback. Thank you so much.